welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast. This is Dianne, your lactation consultant.
And I'm Abby, the Badass Breastfeeder. And today's episode is brought to you by us.
Yay!
But you could still head to our sponsor page and check out all the sponsors we've ever had and see if any of them, you can give any of them business because they do make this podcast possible. And while you're there, scroll down and enter your email address and we will send episodes straight to your inbox every week. That's badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com. And you can also check out our Patreon tiers, and we'd love to see you there. Those are at the link at the top of the show notes, wherever you're listening from, and also over at badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com. And we are still doing our giveaway of for people who leave reviews around the internet. So you can go to iTunes and leave a review, or stars on Spotify, or wherever you're listening from. If they allow some type of review, leave it and take a screenshot and send that to badassbreastfeedingpodcast@gmail.com. And we will send you a goodie bag of thank you for nursing in public cards and some podcast stickers and lots of fun stuff. And include your address in that email. That would be very helpful. And we have something very exciting coming up on August 1st. If you don't already know, that is the start of World Breastfeeding Week and Breastfeeding Awareness Month. And we will be doing a giant giveaway that will be posted on the Badass Breastfeeder Instagram and Facebook pages. So head there on August 1st and you'll be able to comment to enter the giveaway. And inside the giveaway, you are going to find prizes like these. Not like these. These are the prizes. A Sarah's Chill storage container. Safely store your breast milk or formula for over 20 hours in the sleek 2-chamber bottle. You can find them at sarahschill.com. Similary Breast Pumps is giving away an S7 Dual Pro rechargeable breast pump with dual motors. That is their newest in their line of pumps. They are at similarybreastpumps.com. Booby Juice is giving away a kit for a freeze drying service. They freeze dry your very own breast milk into shelf stable powder. They are at iloveboobyjuice.com. Cake Maternity is giving a $100 Cake Maternity gift voucher to be used at cakematernity.com for their maternity lingerie and nursing wear. Just in Case is giving away their reusable breastfeeding pads with patented gravity dry pocket, which captures gravitational leaks. They can be found at justincase.com. Pump and Pal is giving away their angled flanges designed to fit the natural shape of your breast. They are at pumpandpal.com. And then our very own breastfeeding podcast merchandise, like our looking like a snack stickers, and that's my baby's lunch you're staring at stickers. Thank you for nursing in public cards to hand out in the world when you see somebody breastfeeding. My mom is a badass breastfeeder infant or toddler t-shirt, as well as a My Boobs, My Business water bottle. And also, the last prize is a free online lactation consultation with Dianne Cassidy Consulting. And that is our very own Dianne, who is going to be giving away one free lactation consultation session. So these are the prizes. These are amazing. They're huge. We're going to post this on August 1st. On the Badass Breastfeeder Facebook and Instagram. It'll also be at Dianne Cassidy Consulting on Instagram. And we're going to have all of these companies tagged. The giveaway will end on August 7th, and we'll pick a winner from the comments. So make sure you head over there and comment and enter the giveaway. Now Dianne has our review of the week.
As a first-time mom, I quickly learned how unsupportive many people are over a breastfeeding journey. I've come to realize most that are unsupportive are simply uneducated. This podcast has helped me feel supported and given me the knowledge to educate others. Thank you. I love it when people go out and educate other people.
I know, right?
So good for you. Good job that's what you're doing with the information that you're getting is you're educating others, because you're right. Those people that are unsupportive are uneducated. And that's just the bottom line. I had somebody a client the other day tell me that her mother-in-law made a disgusting face when she talked about her colostrum. It's like, oh, like, come on.
Why?
I don't know.
Why do people have to be like this?
I don't know. Especially like, I mean, come on. But it means a lot to us that you take the information and you go and educate others with it. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I know. It's fantastic. And I think that's really that's how change has always been made, right? From like the ground up, from like people who are doing it, from people who are experiencing it, passing on information to other people.
But it really is a shock that, like, you know, as a first time mom, you're going into this, I'm going to breastfeed, and you just get like unsupportive people.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, it's nobody's business. Second of all, like, just be supportive of somebody else's decision. I don't know why people have to be unsupportive. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't. I don't understand why you can't just keep your mouth shut.
Right.
Like, even if you have an issue with it. But this is what happens all the time, right? Like, I think it leads very nicely into today's episode, because we're very much minding our own business with a lot of things. People will say like, oh, that's none of my business, or, you know, I don't know what to do about that, or I don't have an opinion on that. But as soon as we have like either a woman or a pregnant person or for some, I'll give some reasons maybe that I think, but we are just like, we have all the opinions in the world on the female body. Obviously, we have like all kinds of laws up in the air right now based on that, but none for the male body.
It's wild.
It is wild.
It's wild. It's wild. But yeah, this is a great segue into today.
Yeah, it is such a double standard of that we live in. That you know, it's summer, but like yesterday, it wasn't even that hot. Like it was like 80. You know, it's not like where you're just like so uncomfortable you're dying. And there were just like dudes all around walking around with their shirts off. And I was kind of like, I don't care. But I'm like, it's not even that hot. And plus, you just get to do that. Like, you can just not wear a shirt and it doesn't matter. It's like, you could just be a choice. Just like, I'm not wearing my shirt right now. Like, it's literally against the law in Chicago to not have your shirt on.
For women?
Yes, for women. For women. It is literally against the law. There's like a city ordinance. You can get a ticket. You can get a ticket for showing your breast. Of course, breastfeeding is exempt from that, but it's not really. It's not really, is it? Because when you are breastfeeding, then people are like, oh my God, you're supposed to cover that up. Why do you have your breast out? That's weird. And why? Because we think of it as like a sexual organ, right? And by the way, breasts are not sex organs.
They're not.
And they are considered secondary. What are they called? Secondary sexual characteristics. Because they are part of the reproductive system, right? They do feed babies.
Yeah.
But they are not sex organs. I mean, really, any more than your hands are or your mouth, things that we use during sex.
Right.
And now I'm already all over the place. This topic really gets me going. This used to be really the only thing that I would ever blog about. I don't even blog anymore, but when I would write blogs, this is like literally like my whole blog is just stuff like this. So first of all, I asked the internet. Here's the question I asked. Where is it? I asked the internet, do you think breasts are sexualized? I mean, I knew the ask. I knew how I felt very strongly about it, but I'm like open. Let's. I wanted to put out a really open-ended question so people can give their thoughts.
Right.
Which made me realize when I asked it that we don't necessarily know the difference between sexual and sexualized. So, like, sexual is something that's like for you. If this is something that's sexual for you, some people really feel that their breasts are sexual to them. And sexualized is when characteristics are put on it externally, right? Like how we sexualize. Well, we sexualize freaking everything, I guess, but like how children can be sexualized. When they're not, obviously, but then we put these characteristics on them, like when you go to the store and you're trying to buy your daughter clothes from a store, and like all you can find are booty shorts and bikini tops, and it's like this message that we're supposed to be just like putting this body on display. Already they're like 8, but that's sort of, they're already getting this message from society that their body, their value lies in how their body appears to other people, how attractive it is, how much it like meets, the beauty standards.
Right.
And so this, I know the difference is slight, but it's really one that you own and one that's put on you. And so I think that whether or not breasts are sexual to a person, that's their own business. But breasts are also very sexualized in our culture. They have just, we tend to think that their value is in their sexual attractiveness, their sexual uses. And so this is the question I asked, and I'll read some of these answers. There's obviously a lot. There's not as many as there was that other day. What would happen if somebody said something to you in a restaurant? That went on for a long time. I'm just going to read through some. If my boobs were looked at as water skin bags full of milk instead of things of the sexual nature, no one would tell me to cover up or give me cold stares when I nurse my 2.5-year-old in public. Now, this person gets it. This person is like, this is so true. And this is how I feel about covering and how I feel about nursing rooms and all this. Like, it's such a double-edged sword in my head, because we live in this culture that sexualizes our bodies, and it makes us super uncomfortable when we're trying to just feed our babies, right? And so some people choose to cover. Some people feel like they have to cover because of just the nature of life.
Right.
But then also being told to cover, it perpetuates the idea that breasts are sexual and not for feeding their babies.
Right.
So it's just this kind of like cycle. The irony, and this is the next person. The irony is that because we don't live in a nudist society, the human form is therefore taboo. For example, by not talking openly about sex with our kids before puberty hits, we actually increase the chance of them being teen pregnancies, because by not openly discussing something and normalizing something, we in turn make it taboo, and they seek it more fervently. We are curious creatures after all. I mean, that is so true, because we don't educate people at all about sex and safe sex and our bodies and stuff. And that does lead to a lot of actually, teen pregnancies. And we don't teach at all about breasts.
No, we don't.
It's like it's inappropriate to talk about breasts or sex or anything like that. But then you can go to the mall and see naked bodies all over the place, or nearly naked.
Nearly naked. Yeah, absolutely.
And like modeling bras outside of Victoria's Secret. And like, how are you not supposed to get the idea that that's what they're for? When you grow up looking at boobs dressed up and, I mean, some of these, the pictures don't even have faces sometimes. It's just the body. It's like breasts exist completely outside of even us having ownership over our bodies. They're just like, it's like a fetish. It's like buying feet pics off of Feet Finder.
That's so creepy.
I mean, if that's your thing, that's fine. But like, we have like completely torn apart the female body to the point where literally people can't feed their bodies in public without being either uncomfortable or harassed. This person says yes, and that's why women get shamed for openly feeding their babies when their babies are hungry in public. Yes, and I don't mind breast being sexual in the right context, but the fact that the act of breastfeeding is sexualized is a huge problem. So yeah, it's the same thing. It's like if you feel like your breasts are sexual and you bring that to your sexual relationships, that's fine. That's your prerogative. But then just going out into the world and this is the only value that your body has, then that interrupts our entire lives. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, this person says, of course they are. They are part of the reproductive organs, but I think we have a hard time separating the sexuality from the function. And that's true. I do. Yeah. I don't know if the reproductive organs, I mean, they're part of the reproductive. So I found this definition here. Where is it? So there's first and secondary sexual characteristics. Primary sexual characteristics are distinguished from secondary characteristics, which emerge during the prepubescent through post-pubescent. Oh my God, I can't say that word. Prepubescent and post-pubescent phases. Examples of secondary sex characteristics include breasts, pubic hair, and facial hair. And the primary are obviously penises and vaginas, and the more obvious ones that we think are breasts are kind of equal to just like a penis hanging out there.
Right, but they're not.
Men hide your penis and women hide your boobs and your vagina.
It's just like when people say, oh, breastfeeding in public is just like urinating in public. It's like, no, that's completely two different things. What? You can't even compare them.
That is so weird when people say shit like that. This person says, yes, so much to the point that breastfeeding has become taboo. This is crazy, as it should be the other way around. I'm 40 with my first baby and breastfeed pump. Even still, he's 18 months and I don't plan on ending anytime soon. I know how important the nutrition developmental benefits are for him. However, my total experience when I talk about breastfeeding, it makes people uncomfortable to talk with me due to everyone being conditioned to see it as a sexual thing. I feel it is important to see them as being sexual between you and your partner, but there is a time and a place for that, and I hope to teach my son the same, and that he knows that God created breasts to sustain life and all the amazing benefits that it provides. I mean, yeah, like exactly that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so this person says, of course they are secondary sexual characteristics. So while it isn't in their primary function, they do serve a function to mate and partner selection. I do think it's important in the sort of discussion to clearly define sexualization, because sexualizing something isn't the same as objectifying it. Okay, there's a lot to pick apart there. That is a man, by the way.
Oh.
So, I mean, it has been found, I think, that breasts are a part of mate selection, but so is like hip width. And everything that sort of looks to be something that, a person would be
like attracted to.
Or like childbearing, like wide hips, for having babies, and like mate selection among animals and humans, and all of that has to do with reproduction on like the, instinctual level. I do think sexualizing things is similar to objectifying it. It's part of what happens. I think when you sexualize breasts, you kind of objectify them. But anyway, when doing what they naturally intended to do, absolutely not. But yes, but they can be yes in the right situation. So that's where I think like this is where reading these comments made me realize that like having this understanding between sexual and sexualization is different. And that a lot of things that we feel like, oh, well, breasts, I, like to use my breasts during sex. And so that means that breasts are sexual. And they have sexual characteristics, and I should see all breasts as sexual. Which is kind of what society did in a way too, in my opinion, really just control women's bodies. And control decisions and all of that. And I've been talking a lot. Would you like to talk?
No, because I totally agree with what you're saying. It is, it is just crazy the way, just the fact of how breasts are portrayed in society.
Yeah.
And like the things like the Victoria's Secret thing, like, and I have in the past have owned a ton of their things because it is beautiful.
Yeah.
But the way they put it out there and the way they commercialize it and the way that they make it like, oh, we can make your body look like this.
Yeah.
Like it is just obnoxious.
Yeah.
And then you get somebody breastfeeding in public and people are like, oh my gosh, I don't want to see that. And it's like, well, what? I don't understand.
Well, see,
it's
and this is the
ridiculous.
Thing. This is why it's such a double standard too, because like I have a ton of Victoria's Secret stuff too. And I love to use my breasts during sex, and I like to wear fancy bras, and I like to put them on display at times. But I also need to have them to feed my baby. And sometimes my baby is hungry in public. Like they can be two things. Like when I say Victoria's Secret and the sexual breasts and, dressed up, like I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Like that is great on your own terms, obviously. And that's the point, is that like we then say to everyone else, like your breasts are just sexual. They're not anything else. Put them away. When like to me, they're not just one thing. They're multiple things. And you look at like men walking around with their shirts off, and sometimes it's whatever. And sometimes you're like, oh, wow, that guy is very attractive. Oh, and that would be, you can use a man's chest you can be just as sexually attracted to a man's chest as a woman's chest.
Right.
And I know I'm being very gendered, but I feel like I have to just talk about the male and female bodies really.
This is so gendered.
Lay this out. It is. Yes, it is.
It is very gendered.
And like men get to have it both ways. They can walk around with their shirts off and it can be normal. And then you can also be sexually attracted to their chest. And they don't have to put it away.
Right.
Even though theirs doesn't even provide a secondary function or a primary function. Primary.
Right. There is no function.
Even have the primary function of feeding the baby.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's like, it just is such a double standard. And, yeah, I haven't even started reading the ones from Instagram yet. So this person says, yes, and they're beautiful, and I'm okay with that because I like when they look good, and men like when they look good. Part of the attraction to even get to making a baby. But the part of breastfeeding that is so conflicting for me is when my husband starts to get touchy with my breasts. Normal for him, right? I mean, that's part of how we get babies, but they are sore and sensitive and possibly leaking. It's just not sexy to me during that time. Plus, one is way bigger than the other when I'm breastfeeding. I have to express to him that because I like being intimate, but don't want my nipples fondled. Full hand grab, okay, but not too hard. And I prefer keeping my bra on during these months. It's very interesting, though, having in-laws that are Caribbean and European. Their view of breasts is totally a different vibe. Seeing them as natural, not shocking, not overly sexualized. And yes, they are sexy, but not in like an aggressive or anti-religious way, if that makes sense. Breastfeeding is also very public and open in other countries. I mean, yeah.
Mhm.
And this is so cultural too, right? Because you go to other countries and they just don't have the same perspective of breasts because they haven't done this whole fetishizing of breasts that we've done here.
Right. Yeah. I was going to bring that up, that it's very different in different cultures, in different countries.
And then, I mean, this is really more about like a societal thing, but like, yes, it is so hard to go from using your breasts during sex and before you had kids that's all you did with them. You weren't using the other function, and then now you're breastfeeding and it's totally different. And as one person said many, many years ago, they're not just fun bags anymore. And like, they're so different for you, but they're not really different for your partner. They're the same. And that's hard. But that's, that's like a partner thing. And, she's expressing herself to her partner, and that's fine.
But I mean, what do kids like when you had said before too, that it's not taught what the actual function of breasts are. It's not taught to kids.
Mm-hmm.
So what they learn is the sexualization. They don't learn anything else.
Right. Which perpetuates.
The function is secondary.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that perpetuates everything, right?
Absolutely.
It's like this big cycle. And so then people just don't even know. And then there's even more sexualized because they don't have this primary function. And then don't teach kids because that'll be bad. And we think we're protecting them or something.
I have no idea what people are thinking.
I don't know what the hell people think. But then it just perpetuates that. Mm-hmm. And it's so funny because boobs have just been on display in my house for so long. I breastfed for so long. My kids were older when they were, breastfeeding. And Jack, for any new listener, Jack was 6.5 and Exley was 5 when they stopped breastfeeding. So like they just see, and I got breastfeeding friends early on. And so they've just seen this, and it's not really. So when they see like big, a cartoon character that is like, a stick figure, and then her boobs are kind of like out to the side because they're so big. They're like, what? Why is she like that? Like, that's not what a person looks like. And then I have to explain like that we're obsessed with boobs and that we like put these weird boobs on,
on display. Yeah.
Yeah. And make
Barbie
it like,
dolls and
and then it's like, you're supposed to look like that, or that's the ideal, even though it's not even humanly possible to look like that. So this person says that she's heard a lot. Bet dad gets jealous. That's gross. Or people will say under comments on my page a lot, they'll be like, "Ooh, can I have some?" Or my turn.
Yeah. Oh, I've had dads ask me that, like in their house doing a home visit. Well, if the milk is so great, maybe I should get some too.
Ew, when they say that in front of you?
I've had them say that, yeah.
Oh my God. Mm-hmm. What the hell is going through men's mind?
Yep.
Oh my God. And so breastfeeding isn't hard enough, right?
Right.
And then you have like people making these comments around you, and then you have to do it in public. And then you are trying to use a cover, but then your baby doesn't like it, keeps ripping it off, or it's like 1,000 degrees outside. Mm-hmm. And it's just, it's unbelievable. Go ahead.
I think the covers almost like, I mean, I understand why people use them because it's for their own comfort level, but I think they almost draw more attention.
I think so. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that person's covered up in the front. Why is that? Like it just shows, it just draws more attention.
Right. Because if you're nursing a baby in public and you're holding your baby in that nursing position, I mean, that's kind of how we hold babies anyway. Mm-hmm. So people might not even notice.
Right.
Or if you've done what, so many people everyone should do is learn how to nurse in a carrier, because it's just easier. And like, people wouldn't even know.
Right.
But yeah. And then you have a child who gets a little bit older, like you have a toddler, or kids nurse until 5, 6, 7.
Mm-hmm.
Some kids will do that if they're left to their own devices. And then this sexualizing of that just gets even more out of
Right.
control, where people are like, oh, that's just disgusting. Or why are you
And
doing
it
that? Or that must just be for your own needs now, because why would you even do that?
Gets bad.
And then you have people who make these comments like, well, I don't want to see, and this just goes back to the education, but like you have people making these comments like, well, you shouldn't do that here because I don't want my husband to see that, or I don't want my kids to see that. That's disruptive. It's inappropriate. And it's like, how is it inappropriate to feed a baby?
Right.
But because you grow up in a culture where you think that the primary function of breasts is sexual, then you are going to think that having them out on an airplane or on a bus or at a restaurant is inappropriate. Because how is that different from me just pulling my shirt down when I'm sitting there just so people can see?
I had somebody tell me once when I worked in the hospital setting, I went in and saw this family. Their baby had just been born, whatever, the night before or something like that. And she had said, or maybe that day, whatever, she had said to me, she goes, and it was her second baby. And she said, I don't put the baby to the breast. My breasts are for my husband. Mm-hmm. I will pump my milk. So if you want to bring me a pump, I will pump my milk, but I'm not going to put the baby to the breast. I mean, that is, and I was like, all right. I mean, just total sexualization of it. Didn't see where.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so internalized in all of us, where like and I had a friend too, who had, her kid's really old now, but, way back when she had her baby, she was saying like, oh, I'm not gonna breastfeed, that I'm not comfortable with that. Like it was just so her breasts were just primarily and only sexual. And to put her baby to her breast, it just felt uncomfortable and inappropriate to her.
Yeah.
And like, it's just, imagine. Well, we don't have to imagine. We're all experiencing it. Like, we're so uneducated and we're so subjected to this that it's so deeply internalized that like our own breasts, even when we know what they're for, we're so uncomfortable with it, or it feels strange. It's like, it's mind-boggling when you think about like what has been done to us.
I know.
And how people live like this, and the struggle it is to just like breastfeed. And that's like, I'm talking about really just like the kind of mainstream experience of breasts. And you get into like the Black culture and when in slavery and how babies were, taken away and forced to feed other babies. Then you have people dealing with a whole different aspect of that, which is not really the topic of today's episode, but just to illustrate that there are so many layers to this for different cultures and different people.
Yeah.
And yeah, that we've gone in so many million different directions. And I have a feeling that people will have opinions on this.
Oh, probably. Yeah.
So but I would like to know what they are.
Sorry. Oh, I would love to hear what everybody wants to say about it. But no, we'd started the podcast talking about like laws and stuff. And you're right. Like there's so many laws around women's bodies. And I'm sure that they're probably there to protect us. But
I mean, that's
sad.
That's how it's marketed, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just control.
It's just sad.
To control a population of people.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's scary. And I was reading through some of my old blog posts so I could just kind of remember a lot of, of what I had talked about. And I should post this, but it was a picture I drew of, I just drew on a piece of paper, like some boobs and a nipple. And then I put it up in front of my body and I was like, they're male nipples. Don't worry. And then underneath it, I was starting to write things and I was like, and I said, my nipples are sore from all the regulation. I was like, I'm so funny.
Very clever.
I know, but it's so true when you talk about like there's that page. I think it's still around, that genderless nipples. Is that what it's called?
Oh, I think so.
Is.
Yeah, I remember us talking about that before. Yeah,
the whole page is just the nipple, and you cannot tell. You think you can tell? You cannot tell. What is? They're the same. I mean, they're literally the same body part. When the conception happens and then the development, it all develops the same at first. It's not until later that you separate into the different characteristics. I mean, I'm not like an expert on that, but like I know that piece. And it's the same body part. Men have less of the milk ducts and all of that, but men can lactate.
They can, yeah. It is wild. The whole thing is wild. Yeah. But yeah, I'd love to hear if anybody has anything to add.
Yeah, let us know. And we can read some comments, or I wish we could have a radio show where we could just call. I know we talk about this all the time, but
I know
somebody from a radio station should hear us and give us the show.
But yeah, if you want to add some comments in, shoot us an email at badassbreastfeedingpodcast@gmail.com.
There's also a thing now where on the top of if you go down to the show notes, you scroll down, there's like a leave a comment.
I think link. There is. Yeah.
So if you just scroll down, I think you can go in there and click on, like if you're in iTunes or whatever, just scroll down. Yeah. And it's right at the top, right above the Patreon link, which you should also click. It says submit your question and we'll answer it in a future episode. And so you just click on it and there's a way to, you just leave a comment or a question or whatever and we'll get it.
Yeah.
So cool. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.